Hello, this is RICKY, the Android guy. Alright guys, so today is one day that a lot of you have been waiting for, and that is, which is the best Android tablet out on the market right now? It comes down to these two. Now I've tested out every single one of them, so please believe me when I say it comes down to these two guys. I know there's the Sony tablet, I know there's the Toshiba, I know there's the Acer that are not in this, but it does come down to these two tablets really in the end. And that is the Asus Infinity Pad versus the Samsung Galaxy Note 10.1. So which one of these is the best 10-inch tablet? They both come in at $499. However, Asus does give you the more storage for your money out of the two. You do get for $499 32 gigs, as where you have to spend $549 to get the 32 gigs from the Samsung, or else you get the 16 gigs. Let's check out first look and feel. So look and feel is really two separate things when it comes to tablets. Now on the left we have the Asus Infinity Pad, which really does make up a little bit for the parts that we didn't care for on the original Asus Prime, and that is that the curve is a little bit better and easier to hold in comparison. It still has the aluminum backing, which I am not a fan of because that does not get you as strong of a Wi-Fi signal or a GPS signal in comparison to a nice plastic backing made with polycarbonate plastic. So I really prefer that kind of feel to it is for just connection wise. However, in terms of the Asus, it does really feel nice, and let's go around the parts for the extras. We have the volume rocker right here at the top and power button up here. On the side we have the headphone port, as well as the micro HDMI, as well as the micro SD card slot, which is kind of hard to see. And on the bottom you have a proprietary connection, as well as the two hooks for the keyboard that it does come separately. On the back, we do have an 8 megapixel autofocus camera and LED flash. On the Samsung is made out of, like I said, polycarbonate plastic. And it does a bit, last thing for the Asus, of course, the one Achilles heel that I always have not liked on Asus tablets. It has a mono speaker. Now for the last time, I call it a mono speaker because even though it's two stereo speakers inside of here, it comes out of one grill making it mono sound, so I'm calling it a mono speaker. On the Samsung, you have a little bit more of a curved curved on the sides, which really makes it honestly probably the easiest tablet to hold. It comes down between this one and the Toshiba for me on the best tablets to hold. But in the end, I just love the Samsung. It's really easy to hold for a long period of time. Now, on the back, you have a 5 megapixel camera with LED flash. And at the top here, we do have the power button, volume rocker, micro SD card slot, which actually supports up to 64 gig, whereas the Asus supports with 32 gigs. This is the newer out of the two, so that's one of the reasons. You have the IR blaster and you have the headphone port. So those are going to be all of the things. As well as you have front stereo speakers. Now, as most of you guys know, I love this about Samsung. The front stereo speakers are definitely the nice part about it. And of course, since it is a Note, it does have a S Pen, which fits right in on the side. And if I put it correctly, right on the side right here. And as soon as you pull it out, it activates it. So let's take a look and see which is the best Android tablet. That was the look and feel section. Now let's go right into web browsing. Oops. Alright, so first we're going to go into web browsing. Oops. I forget I can't use the stylus on the... And I'm going to... the same image, have both of them reloading right now so we can kind of see the exact same image on both of them and see the difference. Okay, so when it comes to web browsing, you get a really good feel for both of them. However, like most Tegra tablets, and if you have watched the channel, you do know that I have an issue with Tegra tablets is they don't always respond the exact same way. And meaning that it's not consistent. So on the Samsung, you'll generally see more of a consistency for web browsing. I'm just going to pinch zoom there for a little bit. I'm going to pinch zoom here for a little bit. And you can kind of see you have a lot more hiccups. Now, if you zoom in, and then move around. Pretty good on both this time. And then again, when you pinch the zoom, it just, you don't have any kind of hiccups usually ever with the Galaxy Note, whereas the Asus sometimes just has hiccups here and there, and they're so inconsistent, and that's what makes it annoying. Sometimes your tablet will be flying by, and then sometimes it'll just take a lot of time to do it. Now, they both have quad-core processors, but the Exynos processor does beat the Tegra 3 processor in usually almost every benchmark. So it's just an important thing to note. In terms of text, this should be a lot better as it is a 1080p screen, but I'm going to show you in a couple of things, including first books, to kind of show you how that makes an actual difference in real life applications. So now this is going to be the exact same book, and I'm going to flip the page just so we can kind of zoom in, you can see. And I tried to make the text as even as possible, but just so you can see, they're both really sharp when it comes to text, not one really beats the other in text. So one thing, and that's because this is an IPS screen, whereas this is a PLS screen, which in my opinion, PLS LCDs are just gonna be a lot better than IPS screens, and you get a lot richer colors in terms of the reproduction. So now let's go into music. And for music, you can probably guess which is going to win, mono speaker on the back versus stereo speaker on the front. And so we're going to play the exact same song. I want to make sure. Okay. Now I'm going to make sure.
I don't know why sometimes we seem so apart, so together with a broken heart. I try to see you, but it's getting dark. Words keep flowing out, I wonder what they mean. You're like a little piece of kerosene.
Okay, so as you can guess, the Samsung really just is going to be a lot better for sound. So if you guys listen to a lot of music, I do recommend it. Obviously, for sound purposes, it's going to be the best for that. All right. And now let's go to movies. Now, movies are going to be a little different. Actually, you know what? While we're here, we're just going to go into camera first, then I'll go into movies. So in detail of camera, one is an 8 megapixel, one is a 5, and I try to shoot the exact same photo, although they're a little off. You can clearly see in detail that the 8 megapixel is going to win over the 5. Now, neither one is really that horrible, but as I've said more times than not, the tablets are not going to be the best for shooting photos. You're better off shooting with your camera, and then if you have things like Wi-Fi Direct with the, well, actually they both have Wi-Fi Direct, but one thing I want to point out that a flaw in the Asus is that you cannot transfer through Wi-Fi Direct natively with it. You have to get an app to do it, whereas Samsung, of course, comes with their Wi-Fi Direct transferring app built in. It was really weird. I had to do it multiple times with different devices, but that's what I found out about with the Asus. Now, let's go see color reproduction. Now, in terms of color reproduction, they're pretty similar. I would, again, just point out the detail difference in the Asus, whereas right here I can see a little bit more of the scratches on the coaster, whereas here I cannot, kind of just blends in. So in terms of color reproduction, they're pretty much similar. However, in terms of, again, having more detail, it would go to the Asus. But now that we got the camera out of the way, remember that was the Asus that won that one. Let's go to video. Now first off, before I go to video, you do have the stock video part right here with gallery, but one thing I really like is that Samsung has a really good looking video player, which basically gives you a live preview of all of your videos. So I just really like that. It's just a very nice touch. You get a lot more extras, I feel, with the Galaxy from what I've seen. Alright, now we're going to turn the music down on both. And then play. Oops. Okay, wait, hold on. I have to restart or else I'll never get it right. 1, 2, 3. Now these are two 1080p videos, so I wanted to clarify that. These are both 1080p, so it's the best that they can get. And now after doing multiple videos and asking my editor's opinion and mine, we both looked at these. We end up giving it to the Samsung. If you can tell in a lot of different parts, the details are just sharper, and of course the color reproduction's gonna be a lot better. I don't know if you can see it on the camcorder, but this is a white background as where this is like a beige background. And the colors are just definitely more exact on the Samsung. And on things like hair, we've just again noticed the more detail on the Samsung. And which is surprising because this has a better resolution, but that's one thing I always clarify. I feel resolution isn't everything. It's the technology that's behind the screen that's really going to also make a big impact. So just one thing I want to always point out. Alright. Now that was the video. Alright. And now, what about gaming? Well, in terms of gaming, we have an interesting thing here. They both are really, I would say, equal. I don't think neither one exhibits a better thing when it comes to gaming, but there are subtle differences. Now, one thing I would say, I do like the colors of the games, how they produce better on the Samsung, of course, just because of color. And really, to play a good game on the Asus, you want to use your headphones, because I hate having them on a speaker in the back. It really takes away from the game. Whereas it really sounds amazing on the Samsung. So that's going to be one thing to keep in mind with gaming. You want to use always headphones for the Asus. Now, more games are compatible with the Samsung than the Asus overall. However, Asus does have NVIDIA, which means that they have exclusive NVIDIA titles, such as, for instance, the Shadowgun game will be THD version here, Tegra HD, whereas this one, it'll just be the regular version. So you have certain developers that tend to lean towards Tegra for certain games. But more games are compatible, like the Spider-Man and Batman game isn't made for the Infinity Pad, whereas it is for the Samsung. Now that could change, in a month or so, but Samsung just has more compatibility with the Note compared to the Asus Infinity. So I think that's important to note. Now, extras. Extras is really kind of tough here, guys. And this is the first time I have not given it to the Asus. I'm going to give it to the Samsung, and this is why. Yes, the Asus, you can get the keyboard. So that's really nice that you have the keyboard option and that it extends the battery life. However, the Samsung has the pen and it comes with it. So that's one thing. They both have extras in terms of input, but you have the pen when it comes to this one. Not only that, but the fact that you can do split screen really is nice. I use it all the time on my tablet, and as opposed to what other reviewers have shown, it doesn't really slow it down unless you're running a lot of apps, which you can always, of course, just exit a lot of apps by swiping away, and you can do this with both, don't get me wrong. But when you actually have both apps, really both of them run really well. And I have definitely enjoyed it so often. So I really have to give it to Samsung for this. Now, a lot of people they're complaining about the different apps. Is, oh, well, it's kind of limited, isn't it? Yeah, but you have the basic things you would end up using, which is you have internet browser, which it's Samsung's, so it does have the ability to use Flash. You have Polaris Office, you have video player, you have email. The email app I've never used because I hate Samsung's built-in email app. I much prefer Gmail. So that one I'll give to you. I don't prefer that one, but you can use it if you really need to. But I've used it so many times where I've been either online and watching a video, or watching a video and writing notes, or online and writing notes. So I really enjoyed having both screens. It's really been a difference, and that's why I'm going to give the extras to the Samsung in this case between the two. The other thing is definitely going to be battery life. Okay, what about battery life? Both are not the 10-hour tablets that I would like them to be, whereas ones like Acer and the Toshiba did get that. They did get the longer battery life. The Asus gets about a 9-hour battery life, especially if you put it on the different modes you can with the Tegra. You can actually put it on the lower mode to extend the battery life, and same with Samsung. You can put it on the power saver to put a longer battery life. This will generally get you about general uses, I would say about 8 hours, but it can get up to 9.5 even. Whereas the Note, that is one thing it definitely does lose in. It's not as long a battery life as ones in the past, unless you use the power consumption to limit it to a dual core processor instead of using its Exynos quad core processor. So most of the time you'll get about 7.5 to 8. Tend to lean towards more of that. However, if you do put it on power saving mode, you will get easily 9. So that's going to be the difference. Asus wins in terms of battery life. So pricing, the Asus does win for that because you do get more storage for the price, so I would give it to that. So what is my conclusion? Which tablet? As some of you guys have known, because I have posted it, I own the Note 10.1, and this is the tablet that I bought for myself out of all the tablets out there on the market. And I do have to give it to the Note simply because it's an overall better experience. I hate the lag that I sometimes get from this. Now, this will get Jelly Bean next week, so maybe that might be a difference. This is supposed to get Jelly Bean next month, and I just see Jelly Bean making so much of a difference on here compared to here. I think it'll speed it up a little, but I don't think it'll do the glitchiness that the Tegra processors have built in. So in conclusion, for look and feel, it really is a preference. I like the fact that I can hold the Samsung for a longer period of time, so I'm going to give it to that in the end. And even though that the look, some people might not like it, hey, it gets you a better Wi-Fi for not having that aluminum backing. So look and feel, I will give it to Samsung. For web browsing, it will go to Samsung as well, just because it doesn't have that hiccup every once in a while that the Asus does for the Tegra 3 processor. Music, easily Samsung, as well as movies. The speakers really do make a difference. Camera will go to the Asus. Gaming is kind of a draw. I'm not going to give it to either one, simply, although I lean more towards Samsung because it has more compatibility. The Tegra exclusive apps are really nice to have. In terms of extras, I will give to the Samsung, like I said, just because the S Pen, its extra add-on feature is built into it. Plus you have the split screen and just a lot of features you have built into the Samsung that Asus has kept it more of a stock, which is nice, but I like the extras that you do get to Samsung. Battery life has to go to the Asus. It has about a half an hour to an hour battery life extra on normal usage, as well as battery saving modes. Price will go to the Asus as well. So these are the categories that I give to each one, and overall it's the Samsung Note, guys. It is the best 10-inch tablet. Now you can say what you want about other reviewers, but you've seen how I review differently. I try to go on every single thing, and in the end it does go to the Samsung. If you have any questions, feel free to ask down below, but that is the conclusion. Samsung wins in more categories, and that's why I purchased it myself. This has been RSEKY, the Android Guy.